Hi there, and thank you for tuning in to The Social Circus, where every week we dive into a variety of topics covering social media, mindset, and how to run your business. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Social Circus. I am your host each and every week, Sarah Thompson. And on today's episode, I have someone who I have a little bit of a fangirl crush on as one of our special guests. Welcome, Amanda Louisa. I'm so excited to have you here, Amanda.
I'm so excited to be here, Sarah. Thank you for having me on.
Wonderful. So for those guests who haven't heard of Amanda, just to reiterate, in the show notes, all of the links will be there for how you can connect with Amanda, how you can check out all of the amazing work that she does. Today, we're going to be having some really interesting conversations around our energy, our feminine energy, and all of the things that embodies, particularly around being a business owner and entrepreneur. As you would all know, I love asking the question of my guests as to what inspired them or how did they get started in their journey. And I always think that's more interesting than me reading a bio, which can sound super dry. And Amanda, I have to say, I've heard you keynote speak a couple of times, and I think you're a very inspiring woman, but I think your journey is really inspiring as well. So if you can give us a abridged version, please tell us how you came to be an entrepreneur.
Thank you. So my journey's been really interesting. I started my career as a corporate lawyer, and that didn't last very long. And so when I found that I just wasn't really enjoying the hustle and the really demanding, but in a really, fake way. So you were expected to kind of be at your desk, even if you weren't working, just to be seen to be at your desk. Mm-hmm. So if you didn't have work, you were there till 11 o'clock at night. I'd come home, I'd be exhausted, drink probably half a bottle of wine, wake up the next day and, start downing coffees. I was drinking about 12 coffees a day, and that was my life for a year.
Wow.
And that's just toxic. And so I got out of it pretty quickly because I didn't like who I was becoming and just trying to compete with the boys club because you come into the industry and there's a lot of women. And then as you go up the chain, it was less and less and less. And there's more just, old men. And so then I ended up going into sustainability. And unfortunately, what I found is no matter which industry I was working in, whether that was sustainable finance or transport or construction, it was just the same thing repurposed constantly. It was hustle, it was work hard, sit at your desk, continue it. And I burnt out by the time I was 28.
Wow.
And I kind of hit rock bottom. And that's what really started me on this journey of reconnecting with meditation and spiritual practices. And those were all practices that I had done as a younger person. But as soon as I hit the professional world, I kind of abandoned them.
Yeah.
As you do. And then by the time 2020 hit, I hit my next burnout and I really hit rock bottom pretty hard. I was in the UK at the time and we were in complete lockdown. I'd lost my visa and my right to stay in the UK, but I couldn't get back into Australia. I didn't anymore because I lost my working visa. And so there I was stuck for 9 months trying to get back into the country without any access to social services. So I couldn't get any financial support other than my own savings. And then I had to rely on my parents who thankfully were able to help me out.
Oh.
And that's what led me to the deepest burnout and depression that I've ever experienced. I was really, really bad. And I thankfully came across something called nervous system regulation and somatic experiencing therapies. And this is what really started me on this journey of understanding that talk therapy and therapy has its place in our mental health and well-being space. But unless we're working with our body and the somatic side of our nervous system, we're only dealing with 20% of the solution, right? Our mind's 20% of what we're dealing with. So that's kind of what inspired me to take this out there and to help other women unravel that good girl conditioning, that idea that we need to be constantly on, because all that leads to is burnout. It doesn't lead to the success that we want to have. And also kind of reconfiguring, what does success mean to us?
Yeah. Oh, and Amanda, I think our path crossed it's probably more than 2 years ago now, because time just goes really fast. Isn't it? So you must have been really just coming out of that space. And I know that you currently still have a corporate role, because that gives us that stability, and that it's particularly with income security. And obviously your goal would be to hopefully build this business so you can be a free woman. Yay. But a question for you, do you get to bring some of those practices into your corporate role at the moment? Like, has it changed at all over the years? Like, are they more open to anything, or is it still a massive boys club? Because I've been out for 13 years, so I have no idea what goes on in the big grown-up world.
It is still a boys club. I've got to say, like, they talk about well-being a lot more. So I know when I started my career, 15 years ago, it was a very different conversation. They weren't really talking about mental health. Now they have well-being days, and they talk about Are You Okay Day, and they do a morning tea, and they have, courses and things you can tap into, like I think they call it EAP. I don't know what it stands for.
Employee Assisted Program. Yes.
Thank you. Yes, that's the one. So they have all of those resources available. But again, the structure and your promotion pathways are all about your output. They're just measuring the amount of money you're bringing in. They're measuring, how hard you work. It's still the people that are at their desk responding to emails at 11 o'clock at night that are moving up the corporate ladder, right? And so
all of those changes they're making are tokenistic, aren't they?
Very tokenistic. And the thing is, like, we live in a very patriarchal corporate structure, whether we like it or not. And it's still designed for that kind of linear output of energy. So if you think about, males or people who have testosterone as the dominant hormone in their system, they have a linear output of energy, because the whole, testosterone comes at a very stable, and there's not much fluctuation in how the testosterone is outputted. So you work 9 to 5, and that's kind of very natural of just driving. Whereas women, we have testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. They come at different times in our cycle. What is kind of triggered in our brain and the way our brains function at different times in our bleed cycle is very different from how a masculine energy will work. And that is not factored in to the corporate system at all. No wonder we're burning out at unprecedented rates.
Yeah. And I love everything you talk about, because I've really struggled. I came out of corporate after 15 years because I couldn't cope with having a young family. That was just the reality. I was doing nothing well. And then I overlaid that. I have my endometriosis, which demands that I rest and demands that I can't work, and is very vocal in its pain. And I came across the whole idea of energy and cycles when I was trying to work out how else I could manage my endo and my pain. And I remember reading a book on it, and I remember being so incensed as I read it that it all made so much sense, that if we actually listen to ourselves and our body, we have moments of, I feel like showing up on my social media and doing a live, or I just feel like sitting in my office and playing in Canva, or I'm really grateful at coaching today. I didn't realize that there was a bigger force at play, whether it's your hormones or your moon cycle or whatever you're experiencing. And when I started listening to that, I was kind of peeved that this isn't taught in schools.
Right?
Yeah.
You would think that would be one of the first things that we teach people who bleed, how to navigate these cycles that we have for 40, 50 years. It's insane that we're not teaching that, or it's not part of our sexual health for students, because most of
and I feel like I was excited during, I don't know how you felt, during COVID, when we saw workplaces being reimagined and everyone was working from home. I've been working from home for years, and to be fair, I'd lived in Sydney for many years in the UK, and working from home was really normalised there. And when I moved back to Perth, I got a kind of a rude awakening that it wasn't here. And I remember asking when my son was really young, could I work from home 1 day a week? And the kind of implication was, so you want to work 4 days? And it's like, no, I just want to work from home 1 day. And I was shocked at how hard that was. And so I was hopeful during COVID, look, we are acknowledging that actually if people do work from home, they still have to do their work. So it is a legitimate thing. But can we now look at how do people work? Like I'm an early bird every day of the week, and if someone wants to start work at 5 o'clock, sign me up. Someone wants to do a Zoom meeting at 5 p.m. Honestly, go and find another coach. I'm not your girl. So, but I've learned that over time that's my energy in my 24-hour cycle. And I just feel like even our workplaces need to offer more flexibility around that. I have no idea how you make that happen when you have lots of employees, but I'm sure we can do better.
I agree. Absolutely. I think we can do better. I read a really great book a while ago, and it was really about understanding our circadian rhythm, so our 24-hour cycle, and where we're optimized to work better. At some of the jobs, like the ones I had in the UK, they had a requirement that you were available between 10 and 3. And outside of that, you work your own hours. As long as you're available for meetings and calls between 10 and 3, that's fine. If you want to start earlier, take a break in the middle, like however you arrange that, you arranged it. And then we had a timesheet that we had to enter and like demonstrate.
That's amazing.
But it worked so well. I know that even now there's a massive push within organizations and companies, especially in Perth, to get people to come back into the office. So it's ridiculous. I mean, it's 2024. What are we doing if we're trying to go back to the old style of working where you need to have bums on desk? There's so much evidence and science backing flexible work arrangements increase your productivity and staff. It reduces the amount of staff that are taking absenteeism or presenteeism, where you're at the desk but not actually being productive because you've got your own issues to deal with. And so that's costing the industry billions of dollars. And yet we still have that old school mentality of bums on desks. We need to see your desk in the office.
It's so interesting, isn't it? And I don't know, because I do feel like, having worked in other places like you have, I do feel like we lag behind here in Perth, and I feel irritated by it because we're such a big state and we're so isolated. I feel like we should be more progressive with that, but
I mean, we'd be able to work with people all across the state. Like, for example, if our regional office is here in Perth City, but there's an amazing candidate that lives in Albany, then having that flexible work arrangement is so vital for your own business, because if they're the ideal candidate but they don't want to move to the city, you can still make it work. We've got the technology that allows it. Why not?
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think we're limiting ourselves because we still have that linear, very old school patriarchal mentality of workers need to be present. We need to be able to control them. There's a trust issue, because I hear a lot of executives, and so I was at an executive level in my old job, quite senior in the role that I was doing, and a lot of the conversation that was being had around staff and bringing staff in, and the issues that we're having trying to find staff to work, was this rhetoric, especially from the older generation, who were predominantly middle-aged white men from very privileged backgrounds. Their rhetoric was still that, but how do you know they're actually doing their work if they're at home? Or, that it's more productive to have people in the office doing the work so that we can see them and we can make sure that they're doing the right things. Or, it was just very, very old school, and it's frustrating.
Still a long way to go.
Yes.
So with us being self-employed entrepreneurs who have the ability to do things differently, and this is something I have really struggled with myself, is what can we do in terms of our energy, like our 24-hour and our 28-day energy cycles? How can we work better with that? Because I guess, and I'll just share with you, when I left corporate, and at the time, my sons were 3 and 5, so super little. My younger one still didn't sleep through the night. So really, I don't know how I started my business. But anyway, I still thought, like, my kids were in daycare and school, and I thought I have to work these hours and I have to do it like this. And it was actually my husband who I have to say is so good at understanding his energy. I actually really envy him sometimes. He's so in tune with it. he will not work if he's not feeling it. I love that.
I love
I know. And it actually used to peeve me off because I'd sit down and he goes, no, I'm not ready. I'm going to go and game for a couple of hours. And then he'll come in and he'll be ready because he knew how to read his own energy. And I used to be thinking, we need to be sitting at our desk at 9 o'clock. It's time to go. And so it took me so long to realize I'm an early bird and I love being awake at 5 a.m. and I love doing my little morning routine and starting work at 6 a.m. I love it. And then I still had to work till 6 p.m. It took me so long to work how I want to work. It took me so long to lean into that. And I guess what I'd love you to talk about is because it was the book that talked about your feminine energy cycle that changed everything for me. And I started to ask myself, how did I feel and what did I want to do? And it's really hard though. And I look at you with such admiration because you do it so well. So if my listeners are going, I have no idea how to do things differently because like you say, we are very molded when we're in corporate. How would I even start to reassess my energy and how do I work? Like what's a good starting point?
Well, a good starting point is giving yourself permission to do it your way. So looking to external, whether that's on social media, somebody telling you how they're working and you going, oh, I should be doing it that way because obviously they're successful. So if that's the recipe for my success, no, your recipe for your success is inside you. Mm-hmm. So the first step is taking that permission of I can do my work the way I want to do it, and that's where success lies. And the second part really comes down to creating space to connect in with what makes you feel good and understanding that your work isn't supposed to be hard and success doesn't mean you're going to be grinding away at the wheels don't 12 to 14 hours a day because that's your recipe for a burnout, not success, not just... So
it sounds so obvious when you say it, Amanda. It's like, of course it fluently is. Of course it's a recipe for burnout. But I'm always a work in progress, and there were always days when so my unfun things to do. I don't like doing emails, and so I procrastinate on those. So there are always tasks we have to do that you have to make yourself do, and even if you're not feeling it, you have to do it. So we do have to push through it, but we shouldn't be pushing all the time, should we?
No, absolutely not. And that's where I come into this productivity cycle where I talk about rest in our day and how we can incorporate the 3 forms of rest. So rest to recharge, rest to reset, and rest to reframe. So for example, if you look at your day, you can just kind of sit down and go, okay, me personally, I work better in the afternoon and the evening. I'm also completely the opposite to you. Yeah. If you can get me to be like doing focused work at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to be the biggest grump that you've had. So my mornings need to start slow. I've made time for myself to know that, okay, I still wake up fairly early. I wake up at 6:30, but between 6:30 and about 7:30, I do my routines. I do like meditations, I do journaling, whatever I need to do to kind of set myself up for the day that's coming up ahead, really tune into my energy and find out where I'm sitting. Do I have a lot of energy today? Am I feeling a little bit vulnerable? What's happening in my body as I'm getting ready to start the day? That's a really important question to ask yourself. So even if you're a busy mom, you need to get up and you've got kids screaming and that's your alarm clock. If you can find 5 minutes in that morning just to ground yourself with your breath into the moment, into where you are, and just do a quick check-in. Okay, how am I feeling? Am I anxious? Is my chest really tight? Is my stomach tight? Or am I feeling really relaxed and really open? Where are you? That's going to set the tone for where you're going to go, right? Like, if you're feeling really anxious and vulnerable, you're not going to go and record your social media content at that particular point in time, are you? So it's doing those daily check-ins and creating space where you can, within the amount of time that you have, to ask yourself those really important questions, because when you give your body the chance to tell you where it's at, you create this beautiful synergy with yourself, with your energy, and with how you show up for other people. Because if you're running on empty, that's when you've got a beautiful opportunity to turn to your partner, to turn to your friends, to turn to somebody who you trust and say, this is what I'm feeling in this moment. this is the support that I need right now because I don't have the energy to show up and be bright and bubbly and like everywhere because that's just not where I'm at. So I think that's like a really important part. But then also there's this 3 kind of sessions that I say: rest to reframe, rest to recharge, and rest. I forgot what the third one is.
No, that's all right. I've actually heard you speak about those. And when I heard it, because you and I were just discussing, you asked me how my Christmas break was. And I said to you, I was sick. And so I had 2 weeks, I had 3 weeks off, and I was planning, I've got family over from the UK, and I had all these things. And so I was into forced rest, but resting when you're sick is not resting, is it?
No.
And so can we talk a little bit more about those different types of rest? Because I think that I need to lean into this really a lot more, and I'm sure my audience do as well. So let's talk about rest to recharge, because that's the one we're bad at.
A really good exercise to do is if you can find yourself some time to sit down and really assess your values. And I've got a really great just worksheet that has all these different values on it, and I can share that with you.
We'll pop that in the show notes for the listeners so you can grab that.
So you go through and you circle your top 20 that really speak out at you. And this could be things like volunteering. It could be service. It could be creativity. It could be dancing. It could be movement. Whatever it is, like there's all these different words. Circle the ones that really speak to you. And then you kind of do an exercise, which I'll share, which basically helps you narrow it down to your top 5 values. And when you have your top 5 values, you know the type of things that will help you recharge your soul, basically. Like it really fills your heart. So for example, for me, creativity is a really big value. I love being creative, whether that's drawing, whether that's cooking, whether that's singing, whether that's dancing. Like me, just having a self-expression time is really important. So I've actually like started my day in the morning with, you know, those like coloring in books?
Yes.
Yeah. Instead of doing journaling, at the moment, I'm taking 15 minutes to color in with a cup of coffee instead of doing journaling or anything else, because that's giving me space to be a little bit creative in a contained kind of time frame. And that's recharging my energy before I even start my day.
Wow.
So it's a small little thing that you can just fit into your day.
Once you know what it is, though, that's the key.
That's the key. So, I mean, for some people, volunteering helps all of us because we always feel good when we're doing for others, and we kind of like recharge that way. So if that's something, then you can fit that into your week, you know, or dancing. For some people, dancing or music or singing is something that's really important. So, okay, if that's something that helps you feel recharged when you're in connection and community and you're singing, join a choir. Ensure that every week you've got an hour set aside where you can do that one activity that recharges your soul. Horse riding, for example, used to be one that was really important for me until I had an accident. And it wasn't so much a recharge as like a trigger. But when that was my recharge, I used to set aside time to go out and ride every week.
Amazing.
My gifts to myself to like just refresh my soul because I'd be out in nature. That would be a recharge.
Beautiful.
So it doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to take up a huge amount of your time because everybody obviously has commitments and family and everything like that. But it's an hour. And if you can't take out an hour for yourself a day, then we have a bigger problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love that, Amanda. I could listen to you talk all day because you always have so much wisdom, and I am so certain that my listeners have loved hearing you talk. Just a little reminder for my listeners, we'll make sure we put that checklist in the show notes so you can get that. And you can see where you can access all of Amanda's other wonderful offerings. Now, just before we wrap up, I do want to share, because we were talking before we started recording, you have something new coming into the world this year.
Yes, I do. So I am creating a space and a container for women, especially if you're based in Perth, to tap into some of your shadow work. So this is really about unraveling that good girl conditioning, that desire to people please. It's tapping into some of those energies that we've been conditioned to think are bad or that we shouldn't really be exhibiting. Things like sacred rage, things like desire, things like jealousy. how do we channel and work with these energies that we feel as humans, it's the full spectrum, in a way that really empowers us to integrate it and step out into our fullness, so that we're not being puppeteered by these energies, because if it's our subconscious, it drives us without us even knowing. When we bring it to the light, then we can actually transform it and alchemize it into being a service and a gift that we can bring out into the world. So I've got the Dark Wild Feminine coming up soon. And yes, that's going to be a really, really fun container to bring in some of these embodiments around sacred rage and even seduction and all of those energies, and really work with them.
I'm so excited for that. I think a lot of us have a lot of good girl stuff we have to unravel. Yeah. So Amanda, thank you so much for generously sharing your wisdom on today's episode. It has been a delightful conversation as always. For my beautiful listeners, make sure you check the show notes so you can connect with Amanda. And Amanda, thank you again. I'm so grateful to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been so lovely.
Oh, pleasure. And to my lovely listeners, thank you for tuning into The Social Circus. As always, you will catch me the same time every week on a Wednesday for a new episode. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you the same time next week on The Social Circus.
Thanks so much for tuning in to The Social Circus. As your host, Sarah Thompson, I am thrilled that you've chosen to spend your time hanging out with me. I would be so grateful if you could spare an extra moment to go and leave me a review on your favorite podcasting platform. And if you even felt more excited, you could share my podcast with your friends who you think would get great value from it. Thanks so much again for tuning in.